You know how everyone says applying to jobs is a full time job, right? I completely agree with that. But I will say that there was a certain point in my job search when I realized that I was doing my job incorrectly. And it resulted in me doing a lot of output, me putting in a ton of applications and getting no results whatsoever. So I remember sitting in my bedroom in California, living at my parents' house, super stressed out because my current job, we won't get too deep into that, but my current job, I was dealing with stuff. Okay. I needed a job that paid more. I wanted a job that was remote, if not at least work from home for a variety of reasons. And I had just hit, you hit that apply button one more time and nothing. I looked at my inbox and I had gotten like three more of those, polite but very generic rejection emails. We've evaluated your experience and we've decided to go with candidates that better fit. You know the spiel, okay? See so many posts on LinkedIn here from so many people that they've applied a million times, like no fewer than a few hundred times, and have gotten nothing. Um, and that's when I realized that I needed to take a breath and think a little more logically about my job search rather than reactively. I think it's really easy, and particularly in my case, it's really easy to, excuse me, it's really easy to be in a stressful situation, whether you've gotten laid off, whether you do the math and you realize that your current job isn't paying you what you need, whether you're in a stressful situation at your current job, or maybe you're getting paid enough but the circumstances aren't great for one reason or another and you need to leave, and so you just start blasting your application places. But the thing is, that's what everyone's doing. Everyone has put in one, two, three, four, 500 applications. Everyone has sent their resume the same way. And that feeling when you're hitting the apply button makes you feel like you're doing something, and you are, right? It feels like effort. When you've put in 50 applications in a day, it feels like you are working hard. And 100 applications a day feels like I want it, I'm going to do it, I'm working toward this goal. And that logic isn't necessarily wrong on the surface. I think the the saying like you miss every shot you don't take, it makes sense to just be putting in more shots, putting in more chances and hoping that something comes out of it. But the way the job market is right now, and particularly in tech, and I'm going to use tech and specifically tech sales in my example because that's my experience, is what I have the most experience in. And I know this method works, but realistically, this works for just about any department that you want to get into. As long as it's something that you can like demonstrate virtually. If you have one of those jobs that you can still like walk onto a construction site and tell the manager, hey, this is what I do, and you can like get a job in the next couple of days, this method probably won't work. Gonna be honest, this probably is not going to work. But if you're someone who wants to get into tech, or well, we'll just say tech, then this will probably be effective for you. Okay. Okay. um the difficulty when you're mass applying is that I hesitate to say your resume is generic because I know a lot of people, including myself, who paid for resume services to clean up their resume. And there is value in that, But chances are your resume doesn't matter as much as you think, especially if you're trying to break into tech, and especially with tech sales or like software sales. But there's a million and one things that could result in you getting rejected for a job, right? Like we hear all the time about like the dreaded ATS. And if you don't know, ATS is the applicant tracking system. If you have applied to a bunch of jobs and you see Workday, you see Breezy HR, you see Ashby, you see Greenhouse, all of those are ATS. It's basically an easy way for like the recruiting slash talent team to keep track of all the candidates, and they can set filters as to what they want. So if they really want someone with a specific degree, they can filter out the candidates that don't have that degree and send like rejection emails. That's why it happens so often where you'll put in an application and like 10 minutes later, if not immediately, you'll get a rejection email. So if you didn't know, now you know. But when you hit that apply button, your resume, your application is now going into a pile of several hundred applicants. If you ever paid for LinkedIn Premium and you've applied to jobs through LinkedIn, you can often see, especially if it's a job that's been up for more than 24 hours, you'll see 435 other people have hit apply, or 672 people have easy applied to this job, right? So you have to think each one of those people did exactly what you did. And if you're a recruiter, chances are you're going to take the 30 people at the top, go through those and pull those people for interviews, or you're going to use the generic filters, and you might miss out on some decent candidates, but chances are you'll find what you need if you do the generic filters, right? So no one on that hiring team is really, generally speaking, no one on that hiring team is really pressed to make sure that they see your resume specifically. You are one of many. And there's other ways, right? Like referrals help. Um, some sort of warm outreach can help you move to the front, but just putting in an application is like a lottery ticket. How many of y'all have won the lottery, right? And it's not even, doesn't even necessarily have anything to do with like your experience, your skills. It's just that's how it works. If you have to filter out 100 people, or not even 100 people, like 1,000 people, it's going to be difficult to choose you specifically. So going back to when I was sitting in my bedroom, I just hit apply on like the 150th job. And I had to take a second, remind myself to take a breath, and think more strategically about, okay, how do I do this in a way that's different from everyone else? And I'm going to tell you exactly what I did. Instead of putting my application in for 100, 200, 300 companies, I chose 10. 10 companies I really, really wanted to work for. I had reasons why I wanted to work for them. They had the benefits I wanted. They had the company culture that I wanted. They had maybe certain programs, maybe a certain amount of PTO, maybe a certain amount of pay, whatever. The industry. And I built a list. Essentially, especially with sales, there is kind of a formula to how you reach out to people to get a sale. And I'll explain the process like at a very high level. Generally, what you would do is you would build a target list. So it's companies maybe who have had funding. Maybe it's companies where you know that they use a certain software or they have a certain problem that your software can fix, right? Maybe it's companies that have a certain title. Not every company has a CTO. But if they do, then maybe that's your trigger to know, okay, this is a company that might want to buy from us. And once you build out that list, you then create a list of people that you want to outreach with your messaging. So it might be HR leaders at tech companies, and you create a list of all the HR leaders that you want to reach out to. You think about the problems they might have, and then you think about how you can fill those problems and you reach out to them based on that. So, you want to do the same thing when it comes to you. Think of yourself like a software that you're trying to sell. Build your outreach list. Yeah, build your outreach list. I don't know why that didn't sound right when I said it. Build your outreach list, and then from there, think about what problem they might have. Depending on what department you're in, when you look at the job description, they're basically telling you what problem they want you to solve. So it could be, in a sales role like mine, it could be we need someone who's going to do 100 calls a day. Cool. So they need someone who sounds good on the phone. Maybe for you, uh, in order to show them that you call one of their sales leaders. It's small things that set you apart, and you putting in just 10% more effort. And I remember a sales leader saying 90% of your results come from 10% of your efforts. So focus on the 10% of efforts. If you've spent 8 hours applying to roles and heard nothing, that's probably the part of the 90% of tasks that don't result in the majority of your results. Also, reaching out to maybe current employees, right? People who work for the company, could be the hiring managers, could be people who have moved on from the role, whatever. And you want to get information on the company. You want to know what they're looking for in the next role. If somebody has already been hired for a role and they decided to move on, chances are they still know what the company's looking for. They still know what the hiring manager is focusing on when it came to interviews. And here's the really really important part. In order for you to stand out, like I said, do 10, 20, 30% more effort than somebody else, and you will only have to put in 10 applications. I promise you, you will only have to put in 10 applications in order for you to get at least one interview. And again, especially in sales. In sales, you put in just a hair more effort and you'll get so many more results. So, the main thing that worked for me is attaching a video to my outreach. I've never mentioned this before. This is free game, y'all. This is free game. What you're going to do is you're going to choose one thing out of the entire job description and you're going to show them how you can do it. Or you're going to speak directly to it in the video. So for example, if a company says that they're looking for somebody that can do strategic outreach, for example, show them how you would do an account map for a potential customer. What this requires is for you to know their product, for you to know who their like potential or ideal customer would be, and you can learn this from talking to people on LinkedIn. And then you would have to know what an account map looks like, how to put that together. And if you hop on, like, Loom is a great resource. It's basically a free platform where you can set up an account, you can record a video where it'll like capture your face, and then you can show your screen on the rest of the screen. So if I'm showing an account map, I can show them the account map that I've created, and then have a little bubble with me talking through it. So I can explain my thought process of how I put together this account map, why I feel like these prospects are the best to reach out to. I can show, recent news that shows, yeah, the CTO of this company just said on Business Wire that they're looking to do XYZ initiative. So I know I need to reach out to him, and these people are most likely underneath him and would be affected by, if he were to buy this solution, like all that. It's not about being perfect on camera. It's just about showing that you're a real person that can do the job, rather than a Word doc or a PDF that you send into an application. It's setting yourself apart just a little bit, showing that you can communicate. It's showing that you have some knowledge of their product and you've gone just a little bit further than anyone else. And you can send it via email. You can send it directly through LinkedIn. You can put it in a connection request, just a quick like, hey y'all, in the connection request, hey, applied to such and such a role, was really excited about it, recorded a video showing how I would do XYZ and hit the link. That's it. It's not too far. Or it's not too hard, rather. And you think about it, if you are, and I know a few like hiring managers on LinkedIn, and we talk about it often, that if they post a role, within 2 days, they probably have 400 applicants. Of those 400 applicants, one might cold call them, two might send videos, and three might send them, something extra in a LinkedIn message, whether it's a voice note, whether it's, a little bit more context on who they are, whatever. So out of 400 people, you might put yourself in the top 10 immediately just by putting in a little bit more effort. And it I know it's annoying, but do you want results or do you want comfort? I realized that I got to a point where I was putting in all this effort. I was spending all this time applying, not getting any results. And at a certain point, it's like, okay, do I keep doing what I'm doing or do I try something different and see if I get results? And I will tell you this, in 10 applications that I did, I got 8 or 9 interviews and I got 4 offers off of those 10 applications. It's so much easier to get a job. Now, mind you, that's a whole other story because that was one of the busiest 2 weeks of my life. I was doing so much interviewing, which is like great problem to have, but it was just a long 2 weeks. Um, what was I saying? Going back to the other point, I got to a point where it's like, okay, what do I need to change in order to see results? This is how I got results. This is how I went from working in healthcare to now working at a tech company. And once you break in, it is so much easier. Once you have tech or SaaS anywhere on your resume, which, again, if you don't know, SaaS is software as a service. So basically, selling software. Once you have that under your belt, it is so much easier to move into a bigger role. You just need the first job, just the first hiring manager to give you a chance, the first accepted job offer. And I don't want to say your grandfather name because there are people who decide to leave, there are people who still struggle after that, but it's it's so much easier once you break in. And I know it feels a little counterintuitive to do less, but strategy and intention is the whole game. It's the whole game. And when you do your job search like this and you show hiring managers is this is how you're doing your job search, that it's strategic, they're more likely to want to hire you anyway, because how you do your job search is how you're going to do the job. And if they can see how you're doing the job or the job search, and they'll know you'll be able to do the job the way I want you to do the job. So, pick 10 companies this week. Focus only on the companies that have openings right now with positions that you are really excited about for one reason or another. For each of us, is going to be different. And you can put in your application still, but go deeper than just the apply button, please. Do 10% more effort, 20% more effort, 30% more effort, and I guarantee you in 10 applications you will have at at minimum one interview. Chances are it's more than the results that you've been getting so far, right? Can't hurt to try. So anywho, hopefully that was helpful. Yeah. Anywho, my goal is to be able to teach more people how to do this, how to break into tech and that sort of thing. But if you don't know, my name is Alexis. I post every single day on YouTube about not just this, other life things. Yeah, so if this was interesting to you, feel free to hit subscribe, and I will see y'all tomorrow.